Although many think that the first Power Rangers team on Earth were the Mighty Morphin that we have known since 1993, the reality is that there was another team before them, and this story appears in the comics. We know that the TV series and the comics are two different universes, but these are stories that could have happened in the TV series since the comics use almost the same characters. Despite this, in this story we are going to see new characters since we will be able to meet the first Power Rangers team on Earth, and this appears in the Promethea saga, which we have been reading all these days. In the previous episode, we learned that the owner of Promethea, named Grace Sterling, was the first Red Ranger, and now we are going to see all the history of her team, which includes the first man being the Pink Ranger. In order to understand the story, we must first meet the Supersonic Power Rangers, a very old team that suffered a betrayal from their Green Ranger. This story is longer, but in short, this Green Ranger joined Dark Spectre and became the Psycho Green Ranger. After 100 years of this event, in 1969 people were watching a very important moment in the history of mankind, the first man to reach the moon. What no one knew was that on the moon was a ship that had crashed, and it was the Psycho Green Ranger ship. This ship was in hibernation, and because humans were nearby, the ship was able to detect them. This caused the ship to begin the protocol to wake up, and now the Psycho Green Ranger will once again be a threat after being dormant for 100 years. There are many people watching this great moment on television, and here we are shown 5 very important people in this story, which are from different places. Later we can see a woman sitting on the roof of a building in Nazada, and this woman is Grace Sterling. In this story she looks very young, as all this happened in 1969, and at that time Promethea had not yet started. Sitting on that building she starts talking to her friend and confesses that one of her biggest dreams is to travel to the moon, but because at that time women were not considered for that kind of thing, she had no hope that she was going to make it. Her friend begins to encourage her, but at that moment, Grace disappears, and basically teleports away. Zordon and Alpha had teleported her to the command center along with 4 other people. In this group there are now 2 women and 3 men, which are very different. The man in the blue clothes comes from Russia, and no one can understand what he is saying as he obviously starts speaking in Russian. The man in the orange clothes starts insulting Zordon because he thinks he was kidnapped, and all this confusion causes everyone to start arguing amongst themselves. Suddenly, the Russian starts speaking the same language as the others, and they all think he speaks the same language as them, but he tells them that he is speaking Russian. This man's name is Nikolai, and he was actually speaking Russian, but Alpha had activated the translators in the command center so they could all communicate in the same language. Then the other woman in the group asks Alpha what it is, and the man dressed as a military man, whose name is Turona, asks if it is a robot alien. Alpha replies that it is just that, and also tells her that his name is Alpha 5, but also introduces them to Zordon. Quickly Zordon begins to explain to them the purpose for which they are in the command center and tells them that the fate of planet Earth depends on them. He also tells them that 10,000 years ago a witch named Rita Repulsa was conquering the world, but he managed to stop her with the help of others and locked her in a magical makeshift prison on the moon. Since Zordon knew that someday they were going to look for her, he installed defensive cannons, and 100 years ago they had to use them. The Psycho Green Ranger, Dark Spectre's assistant, had been sent to free Rita, and when Zordon realized this, they shot his ship with cannons. Now after 100 years they realized that they never managed to destroy the ship, it just crashed and was in hibernation during all this time. During all the hibernation the ship kept it alive, and now with the arrival of humans to the moon, the ship just woke it up. Alpha 5 managed to block the ship's communication so that the Psycho Green Ranger can't communicate with Dark Spectre, but despite this he is going to try to finish the mission, and this will release the most evil entity ever seen. Zordon tells the group that they must stop the Psycho Green Ranger and that they were chosen for their passion, dedication, and determination to be the Power Rangers. Some are a little angry because they don't even know what a Power Ranger is, plus they think they should just fire the cannons again, but Alpha tells them that can't be done. Zordon explains to them that the Power Rangers are a team of elite warriors who channel the power of ancient dinosaurs to defend the world from the forces of evil. Trona feels they don't have much of a choice, but Daniel says that they are just normal people and are not warriors. This starts a small argument, but Zordon manages to catch Grace's full attention as they must go to the moon, and that is her dream. Grace quickly behaves like a leader and manages to convince everyone to accept the mission. Zordon hands out the morphers to everyone and names Grace as the team leader and the first ever Red Ranger on Earth. Everyone gets into position and Grace a little hesitantly repeats the same thing Alpha 5 said, "It's morphin time." Everyone transforms and we can quickly see a very different team than the one we knew in 1993. Grace, being a woman, is the Red Ranger, the other woman is the Black Ranger, the Yellow and Pink Rangers are men. To better explain the position of each of them, the Black Ranger is Jamie, the Blue Ranger is Nikolai, the Russian, the Red Ranger is Grace, the Yellow Ranger is Trona, the military man, and the Pink Ranger is Daniel, who is a bit angry about getting that color. Alpha teleports the new Rangers to the moon, near the space dumpster that Rita was locked in, and they are all very shocked to be on the moon. Grace gets so excited that she starts crying, but the other Rangers start arguing over nonsense about the trips to the moon that Russia and the United States have attempted. Grace tries to calm the situation and begins to form a plan, but Nikolai doesn't want to follow the orders of a woman who also only manages a group of secretaries. The Blue Ranger feels that he can be a better leader and does not care if the Blue Head chooses her as the leader, he is going to do whatever he wants. Nikolai's plan is to hunt down the Psycho Green Ranger, and Grace decides that she is going to go along with that idea but asks him to make it a coordinated thing. Because she has a lot of knowledge about the moon, she creates a plan and tells the Blue and Black Rangers to go to a certain part of the moon to see if they can find the enemy's ship. These two Rangers leave, but when they arrive at the place it was too late because the Psycho Green Ranger was already prepared. While the two of them try to get to know each other better, the Psycho Green Ranger prepares to attack them from behind and take them by surprise. Meanwhile, the other team members continue to wait, but quickly start another argument over silly things as they are all very different and have very opposing views. At that moment, they hear the Black Ranger call for help and then they see a big explosion near that place. The Psycho Green Ranger was beating up the Rangers, and even though the Blue Ranger was able to attack him, this was not enough to stop him. The Psycho Green Ranger hits Nikolai so hard that he sends him flying far away, but Grace manages to catch him before he hits the ground, and now the Psycho Green Ranger lifts a big rock to try to crush the Black Ranger. Despite her pleading for her life, this evil Ranger shows no mercy and crushes her with that big rock. Trona and Daniel try to attack the enemy, but the enemy manages to destroy the Pink Ranger's helmet glass, which causes him to start choking. The Rangers try to help Daniel, but the Psycho Green Ranger stops them with a very powerful attack. After this, he goes in search of the dumpster to free Rita and finally finds it. Fortunately, Alpha manages to explain to the Rangers how to build the power blaster, and with this they manage to strongly attack the evil Ranger. The Rangers think they managed to destroy it and also realize that the Black Ranger and the Pink Ranger are dead. For the Blue Ranger, this is something normal since he belongs to the Soviet Union, but Grace is very affected by these deaths. At that moment, a green energy begins to appear, and the Psycho Green Ranger is transformed into a giant monster. The Rangers can't believe what they are seeing, so they start running until they come across the Bandora Palace, and outside there is a giant cannon. Because of her military experience, Trona realizes that they won't get many shots with that cannon, so after Grace's words to her, the Blue Ranger decides to sacrifice his life to save the Earth. Nikolai grabs the gun and jumps towards the monster so that it swallows him. Being inside the stomach, he causes a huge explosion that destroys the monster and also ends his own life. In the command center, Trona and Grace begin to blame Zordon for not having prepared them for the mission. Zordon accepts the blame and apologizes for putting them in that position, and also says that the Rangers who died will be remembered forever. Grace is very angry as she feels that Zordon is not so sorry for what happened and tells her that they are going to fix the world with those powers. Then, Zordon disappoints them when he tells them that they are not going to keep the powers since the world is not in danger, but Grace and Trona try to explain that they could end the war. Despite this, Zordon tells them that they should be proud that they succeeded in the mission, but it is not their duty to interfere in the affairs of humanity. They both leave the command center very angry, and we can realize that Grace managed to keep the Psycho Green Ranger's sword.